Harlem.
Yeah, central to Harlem.
Yes, if you know the area, there's easier space, but if you're a stranger,
Yeah.
you can get it easy.
Well, we grabbed the map. We
Oh.
grabbed the map, and yeah, it was real easy.
It was pretty fast getting out here, a lot faster than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, we made it here in about, what, 20, 25 minutes at the most?
Yeah, about 20 minutes.
That's pretty good. You live in Arlington Heights too?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
I'm just a working stiff.
That's good. Some of us have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
I enjoy doing this, so Sean usually checks the camera.
Okay. Mrs. Olsky, tell us who you are, what you do, what your occupation is today. And then we will go back and you'll tell us what life was like for you before the war started. Give us a little description about your family and what it was like where you lived before the war started. So,
Okay, I'm Rachel Olsky, and I live in Glencoe, Illinois, and I'm a jeweler. An independent jeweler, have my own business since 1958.
do you live alone? Do you have
Yes, I live
children?
alone in a house.
Mhm.
I have an only son who lived through the war, who is a doctor in Madison, Wisconsin, teaching cardiology and having his own family now.
And this is not the first time you've talked about the war and the war experience.
No, I talked about it more often, sometimes to groups of young people and sometimes to groups of older people, to tell them all kinds of episodes that we lived through the war.
And you also talk to your grandchildren about it.
To my grandchildren, I talked only lately,
Yeah.
when they got to be 12, and I think they'll understand something.
Yeah.
And they wrote about it.
So
That's
take us
all.
back.
Where?
Take us back before the war.
Before the war, I was brought up in a middle-class family in a small town by Lodz named Pabianica, by two quite intelligent parents who were idealists and tried to make the world better. I had a father with a very rich fantasy. He thought he'll make the world better, so-called socialists at the time. And like all children, we were against what our parents said, so I joined the Zionist group of Gordonia from the age of 12 and got to be very active with them all the years. And because I married a man from the group of the Zionist group, I couldn't go to Israel. Then they wanted to keep him and work for the organization as long as they could, till the war started.
How many people were in your family at the time?
I am of a family of 9 children.
9 children. You had how many sisters and brothers?
We were 6 sisters and 3 brothers. And 5 were left after the war. It was the only family in the whole city where 5 children were left after the war.
Did some of them go to Israel before the war?
No, I was the only one that went. I was the oldest one in the family.
All right.
So I was the only one to go after the war to Israel. I sent my youngest sister to Sweden to go to school. And 2 of my sisters came here. And my brother is here. I have 2 sisters in Nashville, a brother in San Francisco. And my youngest sister lives in Sweden still.
Do you want to tell us something about your life before things got bad during the war?
They were bad all the time. We were people of means, my first husband's family. And everybody thought if Lodz was done as a German city, and Warsaw was only an occupied territory. So everybody thought if you have enough money to go and live the 3 months the war will be or 6 months till the war will be over and live in a occupied territory, it'll be easier than in Germany. So my husband's family and I went to Germany, to Warsaw, and we lived in Warsaw. And it ended up that the war was longer than 3 months, and it got to be hard, and we organized a group of people from our hometown. There were almost impossible to get an apartment, and Warsaw was the only city in Poland that was bombed. And when they started to close the ghetto, it was very hard to get an apartment, and were a lot of people that used to be people of means before the war and were hungry. And the only ghetto that didn't have organized things to help people was the Warsaw ghetto. So we organized a kitchen and cooked a soup every day with something, as long as we had money, for those people. And it came to it that we sold our personal things in order to buy products for the kitchen. And we kept it going for over a year.
Well, when was that exactly? Remember the year?
We started in 1940, and we went till the beginning of 41, when it got to be so that we didn't have what to sell anymore. I mean, the group that did it were a group of 12 or 14 people that could afford to buy food and whatever we could to cook. And when they started to close the ghetto, there were groups of people that for money you could go out. If you gave them like dollars or gold or something, not with German money or Polish money, you had to have something more to pay them. They worked together with Germans. And they took us back to the small ghetto where my parents lived.
They took you back to the Lodger ghetto.
To the Pabianic ghetto, before they closed the ghetto, before 42. Until 42, we lived in the small ghetto where you could, that wasn't closed, go out from the city. And at the time we had some friends out of the ghetto that helped us get out from our factory, all kinds of things that we could sell and live from it. So till May 45, we didn't have any financial problems. Then those people that used to work for my husband went in, and we told them where the things are that they can take out. And they brought them to the other ghetto, and we were selling them and lived without financial problems. And in May 42, the ghetto was liquidated. All small ghettos were liquidated, and everybody come into the Litzmannstadt ghetto, to the bigger one.
Is that the Lodger ghetto?
The Lodger ghetto, yes. And there I right away got a job because I was Mrs. Friedman. I got right away a job in an office. I worked in the office that made shoes for the whole German army, and had quite a position there. So too, the same thing. I had 2 soups when anybody had. I had 1 a day. And my husband had a good job, so we lived better than in those times when you had 1 potato more a week, you felt some way, you weren't as hungry as the next person. And this is how we worked. The whole family got working. Everybody was working. We all came to the Lodge ghetto. 1 brother was killed on the way from the smaller ghetto to the bigger. They picked out the nicest men, the best looking ones from the city, and took him with the children and the older people.
They took him where?
They took him away. So the rest of the family came on within the big ghetto, and we all worked. In some way we managed to go through. Not very good, only as long as the family was together we managed. Till September 1st, 44. We were in the ghetto. September 44, we were taken to Auschwitz.
Can you read?
I was in Auschwitz only 24 hours, just through the selection.
Mm-hmm.
They sent us right from there to a labor camp in Germany, close to Dresden, in a small city named Freiberg. And we worked in a factory that made miniature parts for planes.
Mm-hmm.
And there too, because I knew German, they made me the foreman, so to say. I was checking the parts that they are to a tenth of a millimeter right, and if the person that works on the machine would do something wrong, we'll both hang on the same machine. Only it ended up so that they really were nicer than in most labor camps. It was a group of very nice women, the last ones that were. Most of us were quite well educated. And we tried to show them that we aren't as bad as they thought we are. So they treated us, I think, better than in most labor camps. There I found out that I'm pregnant. And some of the workers in the factory helped me hide the pregnancy. When they saw the Unterscharführer, the assessment coming in, they came over and said, "Sit down, he's coming."
And they protected you.
They protected me, helped me hide it. And when I was 7 or 8 months pregnant, we couldn't hide it anymore, and he came on, he couldn't do anything. It was a time when Auschwitz wasn't anymore. It was February of 45. So they couldn't do anything anymore, and in April of 45, they took us out from the camp to those famous marches.
Yes.
Only we didn't march. They took us in open coal trains. All over the country, they didn't know where to dump us. Wherever we came, nobody wanted to accept us. We were 1,000 women. And on this train, I gave birth to a child.
Tell us
There
what
wasn't one dry thread in this whole train.
happened. Yeah.
And we were 84 women like sardines in a small coal train. In some way, they found an old shaving razor or something to cut off the umbilical cord. And I was sitting for 17 days with the child in my hands. Some way I had enough milk to nurse him. There were 3 other children on the train with us. 5 children went through the war and lived through the war in our camp. 3 that were with us on the train and 2 that were born after we came to Mauthausen. After taking us around for 17 days, all Germany, they let us down in Mauthausen, where we were supposed to be gassed. Only we came a day after the gas chamber was taken apart. So they decided to put us to the Russian barracks, then there the lice will eat us up. And that's how it looked, that they'll eat us up. And we were there till May 8, when the Americans came in. Were liberated by the American army, who didn't do us a big favor, and they didn't know how to handle us. And most of the women got sick. And there were thousands of people died because of the food that they got from the soldiers. Most of them got diarrhea and died. My 3 sisters had typhoid there. In some way I managed to cook for them or do something for them and to nurse the baby and get them out from there. And again in trains like this that they used to transport cattle, to go back to our hometown. Then when we were in Auschwitz, separated, my father turned around and yelled, "Whoever lived through, go back home," so that we can find each other.
With your father went until
With the whole family, we got to Auschwitz together. My father and mother, my parents were very young people. Mother was killed in her early 40s, and so was father.
But you were separated at Auschwitz?
In Auschwitz, they separated women from men. The last men we saw were in Auschwitz, and the next time we saw men was after the liberation.
Mm-hmm. Did your sisters go with you to?
We were all the time together, all 4 sisters.
All 4 sisters.
The 2 younger ones were taken away in Auschwitz with my mother. She didn't want to let go of the children, so she went with the 2 youngest girls.
And
In
she
my
didn't survive.
Yeah. She didn't survive.
No, I know.
Neither did one of the brothers, who was younger and kept taken away from my father. And father with my other brother went together, and they were together in camp, and father was killed 2 days before the war was over. when they were walking in those famous marches. He was leaning on my brother. And some German felt sorry for my brother and shot my father on his back. So that after the liberation, we went home to find out what happened and who lived through and who didn't. And later we went to Munich to wait for immigration. And we waited till 48, and I went with the first legal aliyah to Israel. Started to work there. Worked there for 10 years with sick children.
What made you want to do that when you went to Palestine at the time?
I was working with a group all the time in the ghetto to take care of children whose parents were killed, whose parents died, whose parents were sent away. We had so many orphans in the ghetto. The only ghetto that was teaching the children without books and without paper and pencil, just talking to them, was the Lodge ghetto. So we had a group of teachers that worked with the children all the time. And as much as they all say that Rumkowski was so bad, he was the one to encourage, to do a lot for the children, for the youngsters. He said he wants to be the Moses of the Second World War, to save the young people and not the old one. And he really did a lot, help us. In all the war, we tried to, when we had him like in any of the factories, that everybody worked in the ghetto from the age 10 till 120. We tried to teach them as much as we could. We tried to see that they wear shoes, that they have a coat and a sweater, that they have where to sleep. All the time we took care. It was called the Jugendpflege. And we did it without anything. I mean, each one of us did it after work.
What was it in you, in your personal makeup and in your personal experience, that made you do the things you did from the beginning of the war on?
I was always an active person from childhood. I was active in the organization. I was active always. In our hometown, like we had Alina Satzedek, it means that the poor people got free doctors. We made summer camps for the poor children. We took them in the morning and brought them home in the evening, and I was always active in it.
So you were
So I stayed
idealist.
active. I don't know, I was stayed active during the war too.
When did you first experience the Germans coming into your town? Was there
The war started Friday, and Tuesday they were in our town. Very fast they came in. And 10 days later they threw me out of my apartment. Then they took the nicest part of the city and the best apartments for the soldiers. So I went up and asked them, would they mind that I would put slipcovers over the furniture. Then I was afraid the soldiers will ruin them for me. A doctor of the army moved into my apartment. When I went the first time to see what's going on, I thought maybe he'll let me take some clothes, and I was thrown out in a robe and a nightgown from the apartment. He said, no, I cannot take anything. And I looked around, and there were so many soldiers there that I asked him, would he please let me put the slipcovers? My furniture is new. I was just married a year ago. Would he let me do it? And he says, of course. So I went to the closet and put on slipcovers on the furniture and begged them to watch my oriental rugs. Then it's very hard to clean it. And I found out after the war that 1 month later he packed it all on a truck and sent it all into Germany, the whole furniture and everything that was in the house.
All of your new friends.
Everything, the whole household. He sent away.
You remember the day the Germans invaded your hometown. Do you remember how you felt when they came in and threw you out? What we'd like to go after a little bit, now that we know the facts, is what you felt like as a young woman. What you felt like, what you remember feeling when things were happening, step by step.
You know, we didn't
You
feel.
remember?
Yes.
Tell.
You didn't feel anything. I was sitting and having breakfast. My husband was an officer in the Polish army.
Yeah.
Wasn't back yet.
Yeah.
My two brothers-in-law was still on their way. We didn't know where they went when men were running away in the beginning. We didn't know whether they come back or what it is. I was in my apartment. My mother-in-law was in hers. And we didn't know what happened. We were so numb. Everything went so fast.
So you were numb.
That I sat at breakfast and he came in and said, "Rouse."
Yeah.
So I didn't know what to say. I asked him, "Can I change clothes?" I was in a robe and a nightgown. And he said, "No, you can't." So I took the teaspoon I had with me, and with the teaspoon in my hand, I walked maybe 3 miles to my mother-in-law's house, and that's how I appeared there. And it was nothing new. Nobody even turned around to look. Then it was an everyday picture that I came to my mother-in-law's house in September that wasn't very hot. In a robe with a nightgown with a teaspoon in my hand, I appeared there. That's all I saved of my household, is a teaspoon in my hands. And I stayed with my mother-in-law for a few weeks till we found out that my brothers, the two brothers-in-law that ran away from home before the Germans came in, were in Warsaw. And by accident met my husband, then he was with the army, defending Warsaw, and
Yes.
he was there. So they
Okay.
told him, they went into people that we used to deal with. We had a textile factory before the war, and we had a lot of textile people in Warsaw that used to buy from us materials. So they went in and took for my husband clothes. He should throw away the uniform and go back with them home. So one day we were sitting unexpectedly, they came home. And it was all, we were so, you didn't believe it, that how long can it be, for a month?
Mhm.
2 months. So we had a German friend. Most of the textile business was in German hands and in Jewish hands.
Yeah.
So one of the German friends came and said, "I advise you one thing. Run away from here. Don't stay in lodge." So we went, took money as much as we could get together, money and jewelry and everything, and went to Warsaw.
Uh-huh.
So
Do you want us to?
Yeah, we're gonna have to go.
Okay. You know what? I can't. Thank you.
when we came to Warsaw, the same thing, we had people that we knew there because we did a lot of business with those people. So we got 2 rooms. My mother-in-law and brother-in-law got a room at one dealer's home, and my husband and I in another dealer's home. So we decided, like everybody else, to run away to Russia. And through Russia, we had money in Switzerland. Maybe we'll be able through China to get out of there, to go someplace in the world. And there were people doing this too. So we gave him money, like a down payment, and signed that when we get out from there, we'll take money out of the Swiss banks and pay him the rest of it. It ended so that they cut those people that were taking people out from there to China. And like 2 weeks before we were supposed to leave Warsaw, we couldn't go, and they told us it's over. They cannot take any more people. They cut this whole group that was doing the smuggling. So we tried to go to Russia. So we decided my mother-in-law should stay in Warsaw, and we'll try and see how the way is. So we went and had to go through the Bug, the river Bug, and it was very hard. The Russians cut us on the side and send us back to the Germans. So we decided it's too much for our mother-in-law. How long can the war be? We have enough money to live in Warsaw, so we came back to Warsaw, not to be separated with the mother and brother, to be together.
These decisions that you made, when you talk about we decided this, how did you make these decisions? What happened exactly when you would sit down? How did it happen?
Everything was done so chaotically, so without thinking really. We were all so dumbfounded. We really didn't know what we are doing, neither one of us. All we were doing is buying time, then the war will be over in a month, the latest. So whatever we did all the time was buying time. Then we didn't worry we won't have any money. We had enough money to live on, we thought. And after the war, we have where to go back. The factory wasn't bombed, everything was in order, so we'll go back. So 4 of us were sitting. We were a very close family. we were sitting and deciding what to do. And while we came back from Russia, I found out that in our hometown, they send away 1,200 people, someplace they don't know where. So I said, I have to go home and see what's going on. Then I knew that my parents didn't have anything to live on.
It
So
was your husband's family.
I was with my husband's
Your
family. in
husband's
Varsovia.
family was well off.
Yes.
But your own family
My father was a textile engineer and worked on a job. And like I said, he was an idealist.
Yes.
So I took off the Star of David and went with the train as a German
Okay, from where to where?
from Warsaw
From Warsaw
To Lodz.
To Lodz.
to see what's going on with my family. And I came home and everybody was there, only they really didn't have any coal and they didn't have any food, they didn't have anything. So I went to a German friend who knew how to do, what to help me. We had fabric to finish. Then what we did was only manufacture the materials, and we send it out to finishing places, like to give it the color and the
Sew it together.
to finish. No, not sew. No, we didn't sew. We were selling fabric only.
Cloth.
So cloth. So I went to this German, and he said in his factory they have a few thousand yards, a meter at a time, of our material. He'll try to get it out for me, and if I'll sell it, I'll have enough money to help my family. And sure enough, yes, he helped me, and I got it out.
He was not Jewish.
No, he was a German.
He was a
Most of the people in the textile business were German. I had the keys from the factory, and I went there and took out as much transmission leather as I could, and as much as material I could, even the raw ones, and brought this to my parents. Part I sold, so I got a lot of money for it, and with the money I took and the money I left to my parents, I went back to Warsaw. To know that
You were very resourceful. You weren't behaving like the war was going to.
you had to, in a time like this, when you have to, you learn so much and so fast, and you do it because you have to do it, not because you want to do it. It was the only thing to do. I knew my parents are there and needed me, and I didn't want to leave my family that I was married into. Then I was with them very close, probably closer than with my own family. So I went there, did what I could for them, left them enough money that I thought till the war will be over, it will be enough money for them to live on. And I came back to my family and to my husband in Warsaw. Men were afraid to go out in the city. Most of those things were done by women. Some way women could go by better. They didn't catch as many women to work. They didn't kill a woman when they didn't look for women as much as men. So we all did all those things. Wherever was to be gone and done something, women did, all women. I wasn't the only one.
And traveling, you were able to travel on the train as long as you took.
I was going to German schools, and I knew the language very well. And what I knew was one thing: when I go on a train, to go on a train with real Germans that come from the Reich, and not the Polish Germans. Then the Polish Germans, some way, were much worse than the Germans from the Reich.
In what way? They were more anti-Semitic?
A German from Germany waited for an order to do something to it. A German from Poland looked for an occasion, looked for a chance to be able to kill you or do something to you. So when I went on a train to go illegal, I always looked for the train where I knew that soldiers are there, only the Germans from Reich, and older ones. They left you alone.
You felt safer.
Yeah. So this is what I did. With my old Jewish looks, I went as a German in the German train. Then those trains were set for Reichsdeutsche only. This on those trains I went.
And you took your Jewish star off?
Of course, and I dressed in my better clothes to look decent.
So it took a certain amount of gumption. This can't happen to me. Or not acceptance.
I don't believe in it.
Tell me what
I
it
don't
was.
believe in one thing, that
What?
people will say, this I cannot do. You do everything if you have to.
Yeah.
You get very fast, very strong, and you get very fast, very smart if you have to. I was considered a weakling, that my husband was afraid to go on Aryan papers. He had the chance to get papers and go to Switzerland. Then he was sure that I won't be able to live through the war by myself.
Why were you considered to be a weakling? From what?
I
what
was
kind
very
of
thin
Yeah.
and supposedly very weak, and I wouldn't have the strength to go through it without him taking care of me.
You mean as a child you were sickly,
No,
or were
I was
you?
a very thin child, and in Europe, if you were very thin, they thought you weren't very strong, and they watched you more than the ones that looked better, like I look now. When I am weak.
You were the oldest of the
I was the
family?
oldest, yes. In some way, I felt that my parents aren't very responsible parents. Then my father, to him the party was first, or a new book or a theater, and family was second, and he left to grandmother to do it. I feel that this country is 50 years behind Europe. This is what they do now here, the young people. My parents did then.
Your father was an idealist. He was
Yes.
a man of ideas.
Yes.
And your mother?
That's the same. My father couldn't do anything wrong as far as my mother's thinking was. So whatever he did was fine with her. And she too thought that it's time to change, that the world should get different and treat the working class better.
So, I see. So it was your grandmother who sort of ran the family.
No, not in my house, no. Only grandmother helped a lot,
She helped a lot.
yes, financially.
Yeah.
But you seemed like you were more like a realist. You saw things.
You get to be a realist when you live with people that aren't. I remember when I was 14, I thought I'm more mature than my father, and it's very possible that I was. So then when I started to take the responsibility on my own, I remember father came once home and said now he wants to take the family to Birobidzhan. It was a time
Yeah.
when they started organizing Birobidzhan, and he felt that this is what he should do to his family, is take him there. And I said, I am not going. If you want to, you're welcome to go. I'll stay here.
He was going to resettle with the Jews
Yes.
in Birobidzhan
Yes.
instead of going to Palestine.
Of course, Palestine is
homeland.
not for Jews.
Right. Right.
So he thought he'll go there, and I said, I'm not going. So the younger children in the family said, if she isn't going, we aren't going. So nobody went.
Ah.
So I always thought that I'm more mature than they are, and like I said, I probably was. Only it probably does to you that the circumstances in life make you, that you are the one to make decisions. I still am.
Yeah. It's interesting that you made those decisions. You didn't have anybody to teach you what to do. You didn't have.
This is what I said. You learn so fast. Life is your best teacher. If you have to, you do everything. I came to this country as a teacher and got to be quite a successful jeweler. I had to.
Yes.
And then when you went to Warsaw and you were in the ghetto, what were some of the conditions there and how did you
Terrible.
feel?
Absolutely terrible. I feel that the Warsaw ghetto was the worst ghetto that was, besides I lived only in 2 ghettos after the Warsaw ghetto. Only each one was better organized as far as the food was divided. The people some way were more willing to share their apartments. It was terrible to get a room in the Warsaw ghetto. Even before the ghetto, when we came to Warsaw, the normal saying was if it would be the opposite. If they would come to us, we all would be better off. It was the hardest thing to get a room from a Warsaw family that lived at the time in a 3 or 4 room apartment, and it wasn't allowed. Jews shouldn't have. We should have every family 1 room only. It was the hardest thing to get an apartment from them.
Did you feel that the Warsaw Jews, the Jews who were in the Warsaw ghetto from Warsaw, were not as communal minded? They were not as.
Because it wasn't organized like it was organized in other ghettos.
Tell us how
Like
you
I was
saw
in
it.
the ghetto. I told you we cooked the meals. We did it. A private group of people did it. The Warsaw community didn't do anything.
Mhm.
Absolutely nothing.
So there was nobody that was running
No.
things, so
no,
to speak.
No.
It was just
I was
everybody
in
did their
Warsaw
own.
till they started. When they started to close the ghetto and they started already the factory, I lived on Świętojerska 32 where they had the first factories to make brushes. in the Warsaw Ghetto. This even wasn't as organized as the factories were in Lodz, that every worker got his soup every day, that every person got his loaf of bread a week. Even if it weighed a few grams less than the rest ones and people were complaining, only everybody got his ration of food that was sent into the ghetto, what wasn't in Warsaw. In Warsaw you could meet smugglers that were going out through the wall and be rich and go to nightclubs and eat the best food. And the front, at the door of the nightclub, you saw people laying dead with a newspaper over their face till the people came to collect the dead people in the streets. This was only in Warsaw.
So your group of young people were from Gordonia,
Yeah.
and you decided to organize a kitchen in the Warsaw Ghetto?
This was before the ghetto, not in the ghetto.
That was not in the
This was before the ghetto,
Okay.
right? When we came, we started it in the beginning of 1940.
Where did you start it? In what?
On
in your
Novolipki,
apartment?
in the Warsaw
In-
Ghetto. No, we took on a whole apartment. It wasn't an apartment. It was some organization before. This the Jewish community did. We went and asked them for a place. So they let us have this, it was a library or something, I don't even remember. Only there were 2 rooms. In one we made a kitchen, and in the other we put up tables with chairs, and we were serving those people we knew. Those were all people of means from before the war that came there and literally didn't have a thing to eat. The only food they got was the 1 meal a day. They got the soup from us, soup and sometimes bread or a roll or whatever we could buy. You could buy in Warsaw everything if you had money. All the time, even during the ghetto. They smuggled in so much food that the people that had enough money to pay could buy everything. Only there was no rationing of food like it was in other places. The Warsaw Ghetto was the only ghetto that people knew they are going on a sure death. Then the trains used to come back, and there was inside all kinds of ridings. To know that this was the only ghetto that everybody knew if they go to the trains, they go to a sure death.
When did you decide to leave the ghetto then, the Warsaw Ghetto, to go back?
I was when the ghetto, before they closed the ghetto.
Before they closed the ghetto.
My parents wrote, it was still a possibility of writing and sending a letter or some news. My parents sent me a letter with a Polish man that they knew. He came and told me to try to get out and come to our ghetto. There were 2 men by the name of Kohn and Heller that worked with the Germans, and you could go get wherever you want to if you pay them for it. So we paid them. I don't remember how many, only some $20 gold pieces. And they took me 1 week and my husband a week later into the small Pabianic ghetto,
Where your parents were.
where my parents were. And 2 weeks later, they were supposed to bring my mother-in-law, my brother-in-law, and they couldn't take him anymore. Then the same thing, they were cut already and they couldn't take him out. The ghetto was closed.
Were they deported? Your mother?
Yes.
They remained in the Warsaw.
Nobody remained in life in the Warsaw Ghetto.
except
Only those few people that were fighting, the last ones that were hiding. And I feel that they were hiding because the same thing they were buying for time, this what was the whole fighting. If you were on a roof of a tall building in the Warsaw Ghetto, you saw the Russian army on the other side of the Vistula. So they all thought that tomorrow the war will be over.
And so did you.
So did I, so did we all.
Right.
Nobody thought that the war will be 5 years.
What was it like when you got back with your family to Pabianica?
When I came back, first of all the Poles were coming and complaining that they were burning, and so many came still home. This was a little town of 12,000 Jews. It was like a suburb of Lodz. 12,000 Jews.
And
700 were left alive of the 12,000, and they were all complaining.
the Poles were
The Poles were terribly complaining. They
Not
burned
enough.
and burned, and so many came still back.
So the Poles in your little town were very
In every
anti-Semitic.
town.
They were very anti-Semitic.
Yes. So I started to work right away to support the family. Then I decided the day after the war I'm not going back to any camps, the free camps or other. I will live like everybody else in the city. So I found an apartment.
What made you decide that? What
I
gave
didn't
you
want to
that?
live in a camp. My child wouldn't be growing up in a camp. And my child wouldn't live on this, what the Jewish community will give me every month to live on. So I went to work and was carrying the baby, nursing the baby, and taking care of all 3 sisters and working. In some way, I was the first man in town to really have an organized household with an organized life. And everybody that came to the hometown to look for something came in. Then we all felt like one family. There were so few people left that we all felt like a family. So one of my friends, my father's friend's sons came home. He was like 6 feet tall and weighed 80 pounds. So I took him in and nursed him, and he remained with us. He married my younger sister. And like I said, my husband, who was my jeweler, came home with his nephew. You know, everybody, those were leftovers of families. He came home with his nephew, and we married off his nephew to my other sister. Then I decided that my sisters have to marry boys that I know from which family they come. Can't be from families that I don't know. I have to know who I marry him off to. I felt responsible for them. So my husband and I made the wedding for my sister, who's 2 years younger than I. And
were the Polish people, you came back to your town, was conditions still very bad there, even though you were working there, and were they still anti-Semitic? And
it was. They didn't do to me anything bad. They didn't in our town. It was a working class town. They just were angry that so many Jews lived through the war. Only they didn't do anything wrong to us. I had a lot of Polish friends from before the war who were friends of my parents. And my father thought that everybody is the same, and it was a very assimilated home.
what made you decide then to go to Israel?
This was the only place we thought of going. This was the only place a Jew should go after the war. So we went to Munich, and my husband took with him the merchant. This wasn't my husband yet. Only he came to Munich with his all merchandise, and with my sister and brother-in-law, who was his nephew, and we decided we want to get married. And he knew that I don't want to get married. So he came, the way he came to offer marriage, he said he wants to be the father of this baby. So we got married, and it ended up so that he really was an ideal father to the baby.
And was he an ideal man for you? Were you able to?
We were very good friends, yes.
But
we both built our lives, all of us after the war, built our lives really on the ashes of our old lives. So anybody that has a little bit of brains, try to be as nice to the second one as nice as you could. And with the time living together, you get to be such good friends that it ended up being a good marriage, of course.
And then you went to...
Okay.
Yes, I did.
Tell
And
us.
wherever I was always on top of it. I don't know how, and like I said, when we managed the kitchen, I was on top of it. When I came one day and they didn't have any produce to buy, so I gave them the lining of my coat, what it was for. And they went out and sold it, and I said I can live through the war without a fur lining in my coat, and we sold it. I don't know, some way you do it by yourself. When I came into the lodge ghetto, and they put me in the factory of shoes. I never saw how a shoe was made or sold in my life. And 2 weeks later, I was head of the office of there. Then I tried, I wanted to.
Yes, I understand that you wanted
I
to.
had a family that I had to give him jobs. And if I thought if I'll be on top of it, I'll be able to give him better jobs. My father was working in the place where they were giving out material to the shoemakers. So he had it easier. My younger sister, who was a little child, I took her in with me and saw to it that she gets 2 soups a day instead of 1. I had to. I felt that some way, if I'll do it, they'll get more out of it than other people. Because I was active before the war, when I came into the ghetto, one of the men who was head of the giving out clothes. And the clothes that they brought in from the people that they send away to kill, they had a whole big magazine of clothes in the ghetto. So the man that was head of it was a man that was working with me in Gordonia before the war, so I went up and got as much clothes as I needed for the whole family. Not as much as I needed. I got 2 or 3 changes of clothes for everyone in the house, where other people got only one. Some way, even I knew I had to do it, so I did it.
You always come back to it had something to do with what you did before the war, because you were in a movement before the war, because you were the oldest. Is that, you think, what gave you the sustenance and the resourcefulness
I
to
don't
act?
know
do
what
you
gave
think?
it to me. I just thought I always felt responsible for all this, and I had to do it. And if you know you have to, I'm like I say, I still don't believe that somebody will come and tell you this is something I cannot do. I still do it.
Mhm.
Like I said, I'm 65 years old, and there isn't I can't do it. I do it if I have to.
If you have to and if you want to.
Yeah, I do it. And if you don't want to, you are lazy and you don't never do anything.
What period would you say was the worst for you, that you felt during that time was very hardest for you?
When I was in labor camp. When I knew that I'm pregnant and had to hide the pregnancy, then they were killing pregnant women. Where I knew that I had to give birth any day now to the child, and I was too weak,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely too weak to give birth. And I was sure that now I'll die together with the baby and me. So far that the German, who was head of our camp, went out in the city to find a doctor to take the baby from me, do anything to the baby, only to save my life. He felt sorry for me,
Why?
and he couldn't do it. I don't know why. He felt
Well,
sorry
wait,
for me.
just wait. What was it about you that you think made him feel sorry for you? Let's just think a little
I
bit
worked
about
much harder in the camp than most women.
it. Yeah.
I saw to it, they knew it, they weren't dumb. When I saw a woman is weak and cannot do it, I went and did it. When there was a tall ladder to go up and wash windows in the factory, I was the one to do it even if I didn't have to. I was always working harder than the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And he saw that I was working till the last minute, till they took us out. And when we left the factory we worked, and we left it spick and span, and we had to clean it. And I was more than 9 months pregnant, and I did most of the work. And I was afraid if the work won't be done, the women will get beaten up for it, and I didn't want to. I saw to it when we had special food. We had a few teenagers in camp, that they get it and nobody else. And he knew about it.
So he liked you, and he
I don't know why he liked me. He never spoke with me. He never
thought you were
said
valuable.
anything. No, he thought that maybe it's worth to save my life. He didn't speak with me about it. He never had anything to do with me, just saw me. And the people that worked in the factory probably gave him reports how somebody works and what somebody is doing. I was the translator from German to Polish.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought that he would like to save my life. So he went and he wanted to pay for a doctor. Couldn't find anybody that wanted to do it. It was against the law.
Mm.
Till it came to the transport. And probably another man would left me there. They would be lucky only. He would left me there. He took me with on the transport. Not only did he take me with, he took all the people that were sick and had babies with a truck to the train. The rest walked to the train.
And you got to ride to the train.
And I got the ride to the train. Not only I, most
Yeah,
of the
all
sick
of-
people. He took everybody with.
This may be a little bit difficult for you, but can you tell us exactly how you gave birth on the train?
It was as simple as
What
one
do you
can
remember?
think. That I got pain, and there was a Russian woman who told us she's a doctor. And she was there talking to me, and I was afraid to scream. So I kept quiet.
You were very thin. and
Yes,
you
I
did
was
not
as
have
thin
much
as
strength.
glass, and I was very weak.
Yes.
Then in the first months when we came to camp, because I wasn't hungry before, I couldn't eat the food we got there.
Yeah.
So I
you-
was very weak.
Yeah.
I wasn't maybe as weak, my muscles were very weak. Almost didn't work. Only when we were on the train, every time we stopped, the SS women that were with us went into the farmers, took off the pot of food from the stove and brought us on the train for their sick people. Some way they felt that we are their responsibility. And they fed me. I got to be so weak that she fed me with a spoon. And at night I got pain, and she said that this was what gave me the strength, is the meal she gave me. Yeah. And maybe 4 or 5 hours I was in so-called labor till the baby came. And I was so long pregnant, the baby was much bigger than normal. He weighed over 4 kilo.
My goodness. You must have been skinny like a...
Yes. I was,
And
if
only the
you looked
stomach.
at the stomach, looked almost like of glass. You could look through it almost. And it was itchy and terribly painful. I think the worst pain that I ever had wasn't the labor pain, was when we were walking to work from the place we lived in labor camp to the factory. When your breasts get cold, that's the worst pain under the sun. I think that I suffered more from cold in the breast walking to the factory than from the labor that the child was born.
Did you ever have trouble finding food for the child? and
No,
stuff?
I was nursing.
And then afterwards?
I was nursing the baby a whole year.
A year.
He was born with a chronic diarrhea. And everybody that saw the baby said if I want him to live, I should nurse him. So I nursed him for a year, almost a year.
And by that time, things were better and you were able to get food.
Oh, when the minute we got the American Army came in, it was in May, he was only 6 weeks old. Yes, from then on I had food. I learned how to be my own shochet. Then when we came home, you couldn't buy anything. Anything you could buy, you had to go on the market and buy like a live chicken or a live duck and a bag of potatoes and take it home on your back and do what you can. So I brought home a duck the first time after the war. I had 3 sick sisters after typhoid, and they were very weak. They couldn't walk in the middle of the room. They were holding on to the walls. And I knew that the only way I get them back to strength is with some nourishment. So I went on the market and brought home a live duck and tried to kill it myself. So I cut on the throat and let the duck in the kitchen and closed the door and went out. And the duck is probably the strongest bird to get killed. After 2 hours, I came back to the kitchen. When the duck was laying there, I was crying for hours. Everything from the ceiling to the floor was full of blood and dirty. It took me forever to clean up the kitchen. Only I cleaned the duck and made a soup and gave the children food. The next time when I had to kill something, I didn't leave it on the floor. I made it already. I killed it dead. Only I had to do it. I wanted the girls back to strength. So I was killing my own poultry that I was buying and cleaning it and cooking it.
Was there any time during the war that you were ready to give up? That you just couldn't
No.
fight?
No. And I'm
No.
not ashamed to admit, when they brought us to Mauthaus
Yeah.
and took us down to the gas chamber before we knew that that is taken out, we were sitting there. I was already so, I don't know how to explain it. I didn't care anymore. That I wouldn't mind if they'll take the baby and do what they want to. Absolutely didn't care. This was the only time, those few hours, we sat down and waited till the Germans decided what to do with us. I was holding the baby to the breast without really caring what.
What happened before then? What led you to that state?
Nothing. We were sitting there and we knew already what they do when they take you. They told us they take us to the shower.
Yeah.
And this time we knew already
And
what
you
they
knew?
did at the shower, yes. Then there were some women that came to the labor camp from Auschwitz later, and they told us that this is what everybody was told, you go to the shower. We came to Mauthausen, they said they take us to the shower.
What did you feel then?
Nothing, absolutely nothing. I went down and sat on a bench with the baby, gave him the breast, and let them sit there maybe for over 2 hours till they came and told us to go out to the other barracks. I let the child sit, and I really was like a stone.
You had enough.
Yeah. You know, after 17
Yes.
days sitting in the train with the baby in your hand, I really didn't care anymore. And this was the only time when I was separated from my sisters. Then they were with the group that was walking to Mauthausen from the train.
Yeah.
And we are the ones that they brought with a truck, then we couldn't walk.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, they told you that they had.
They told us we should go on to the Russian barrack, the lice will eat us there alive. So from there we went out, and as soon as I got out of there, I took over again. Then my 3 sisters came, and I saw to it that we get all one bunk that we can be in. We were the only ones to be, only 4 sisters and the baby on a bunk on the top bunk. Rest people, they had between 10 and 12 laying out like herring on the bunks. Only we came in, and there was a group of doctors that thought because I brought a child, they gave us, for the 4 of us and the baby, 1 bunk on the top.
So
Thing.
being together with your family was very important to you.
Of course.
But you managed through the train ride without your family. You were alone.
I managed to send them every day food from the place where they too were on the same train,
Yeah.
only in another compartment. And I was with the sick people and the 2 other women that had babies, so whatever the SS women can organize in food, they gave it to us. So I was able, with one of the SS women, to send over every day some food to them.
Mm-hmm.
There still are some women around that think that they live only because they got 1 bite of bread or 2 crumbs of something else from my sisters. Then they didn't eat by themselves, they shared with everybody else there. So I still was able to send them some food every day from this what I got for me and the baby.
You must certainly still be very close with all of them, with
Of
those
course.
kinds of.
Oh yeah, they all
Things
treat me
behind
like a
you.
mother-in-law.
Not like a mother?
No,
Why?
not my sisters, my brothers-in-law. They still wouldn't dare talk back to me. And they still don't do anything without telling me what they're going to do.
Well, you feel that you earned it.
I don't
you?
know I earned it. It isn't such a good thing to feel responsible for so many people. It's much better to be different, to be taken care of than take care of other people.
That's true, but you did it.
Yeah,
Because you say you had no choice.
no. This is what I say. I don't believe it. You can't do it if you have to. I had to.
And then you went to Israel and you decided to work with children.
Yes. The same thing. I had people that I knew that I didn't do it by myself. We were a whole group of German people who in all took psychiatry. As you know, most psychiatrists were Germans after the war. We decided to start a school. Then in every kibbutz, when they had disturbed children, if you have a child in a family, it's the family. If they had it in a kibbutz, this child disturbed the whole 30 or 20 or whatever children were in this group. So it was much harder. So we decided
Mrs.
to make a
Olsky,
school.
why did you decide to work with disturbed children? That just
Those were the ones that needed help.
what made you want to work with people who needed help at that time, and why did you choose children? You could have decided to go
I
to
like
work.
children much better than grown people. I still do.
Why?
I don't know. I like children. They're much better than grown people. They still are, I think.
What makes them
They
better?
aren't as spoiled as the grown-ups. They still are so much more honest and tell you the way they feel or whatever they want to do. I like children.
I'm trying to understand what your ideals were when you got back.
I
mean,
don't think those were ideals.
What was it? I mean,
I
there were
cannot
lots of people
sit and
who
do
were
nothing.
Right.
And I wanted to do what I like to do. I could afford to do what I like to do. Then we came to Israel with a lot of money. We had a very successful jewelry store in Munich. And we came to Israel independent. I didn't wait for the UNRWA or somebody else to help me. So I could afford to go to work where I wanted to. And this is what I wanted to do. I couldn't find anything that was more interesting to me. It was very hard work, as you
Yes,
probably understand. I worked many hours. I lived next door to the school, and at night, if a child had a stomach ache, nobody could take care of it. They called me. Only this is what I like to do. This is what I wanted to do. There were so many children killed. There were so few children left alive that I thought the ones that are alive, we should see to make out of them useful people. Then we came out with so few children. From our town, I think 3 children were left alive. I thought 250,000. One of them was mine. And 2 more children were hidden and left alive. So we felt that this what should be done is help the children.
Because, I mean, people who came out of the war with money, and you had your own child to take care of. Your child was 2 at the time? Or-
When we came out of the war,
Yeah, your child was...
6 weeks old.
Okay, when you got to Israel,
He was 4.
He was 4. You had your hands full, and you could have decided
I didn't have
to
my
live for
hands full.
yourself.
In Israel, I don't know how to live for myself. I still don't. In Israel, children start kindergarten at 4. So when my child went to kindergarten, I didn't have what to do. I had to go and do something. I always found work to do, and it's a habit of working. It's the same thing like some people study the rest of their life. I was used to do things, so I still did, and I still do. The hardest thing for me is to sit a day not having anything to do.
So you worked with the children for how long in
10
Israel?
years.
10 years.
Till my husband got very sick in Israel. And he had 2 brothers here who taught at the time Eisenhower was president with the same condition as my husband. So they thought if we'll come here, they'll be able to save his life. Then they left home when he was a baby and left the parents with him. He was the only one to be with the parents, so they thought now is their time to take care of him. They wanted us to come here. So after my husband's 3rd heart attack in Israel, we came here. They were thinking maybe of open heart surgery, only at the time it was just the beginning of it. And they couldn't do it, it was too late. Only he lived 9 years, almost a normal life.
And what did you do when you came here?
We bought a jewelry store.
That's and you worked with him there.
Yes, I had to. Part of his sickness was that he was afraid to be alone. He was sure if he's with me, nothing can happen to him. So I went to work with him.
That's how most people must have felt when they were with you. If they were with you, nothing would happen to them.
That's true.
I don't know.
That's true.
So I started to work, and I still do.
And you're still doing that. You're still working in the jewelry store.
And for 17 years, I do it by myself.
Well,
In the next tape, we're almost finished with this part, and I don't know how long we'll go, but I think in the next tape I would like to ask you, what did you learn? What did you walk away from as a result of the Holocaust, the war experience? And not only what did you learn, but what would you like to transmit? What would you like to teach others about the experience for the future? Give it a little thought. We're going to have another tape now, and I know it's not easy to answer.
What?
Okay, good. And do you have anything that you would like to ask Barbara?
she's a fantastic lady. No, I just, I'm beginning to understand you. The tape.
Most of those hard times, they are what they are now, and it isn't so.
Tell us.
Characters didn't change. When they had hard times, the polish came off. And when times got better, the polish came on. Only the same people that lived those times that I lived with, and I know them, Nothing changed. They just showed the real face when times were hard. They couldn't hide behind anything. And when times got better now, they're the same as they were before. It is only an excuse that the war changed them. War didn't change anybody. Characters, hard times don't change their character. This is only the time when you show your real character, is when it's a hard time.
In your opinion, what made your character? What formed your character?
I
It
don't
wasn't
know.
the war.
I don't know.
Just put it together. You're a
I
psychologist.
really don't know.
You're a little bit of a psychologist. Tell us, what do you think?
I don't know. I thought about it. I don't know. I just felt I thought always, when we were brought up without any religion, my father's only answer for it was, if you look in the mirror and you are able to live with the face you see, that you're a religious person. And I think I went by it all my life. If I can live with myself, I'm fine. My own conscience was the most important thing to me. And I did what I thought is right all the time. That's all. You can't explain what make you do things. You really don't. Then it's so spontaneous what you do things in times like this, that you can't explain what made you do it. Absolutely not.
Do you think that the group that you were part of had something to do with you being able to hold on and to be as effective as you were?
I don't know what this had anything to do with it. Then they all listened.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the night when Dresden was bombed. I was already almost 8 months pregnant, or maybe farther. It was in February. We were so close to Dresden that the whole city was as light as daytime from the fires. And the women tried to open the door.
Mm-hmm.
Then we were closed into the factory. If they tried to open the door, then the Germans were all in the bunkers. And run out. They were afraid. And I stood at the door yelling, no one is leaving here. And I took out a screwdriver and showed them, I can open the door in 1 second. If I'll feel it's necessary to run, I'll let you all run. Only as long as we are here and no bombs are falling close to us, you see how far away they're falling, we stay quiet here. And my youngest sister, who was then 14 years old, hung on my neck and cried, how can you take the responsibility like this on your own conscience? Those people want to run, let us run. And I said, no. You'll see if time will come and I'll think we have to run. And I put the women on the side. There were 200 women to walk. I told them where to walk, close to the wall, not to run out. Anyway, the factory wasn't bombed. And next day we found out that like a half a mile from us was a camp of Russian women who did run out. And the Germans shot at them from the bunkers and killed most of them. Mm-hmm. And we were all left because we were sitting quiet. I don't know what made me do it, not to let them out.
So it wasn't the group?
I couldn't explain it, no.
No, it was some of your own initiative.
Yeah, I was afraid. I knew that if we'll go out, the Germans will shoot at us. And they looked how to get revenge, at a time like this especially.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what did it.
All right.
Is there anything that you would have done differently, that you could think of, that you, in those days, that you're sorry that...
No, you
didn't-
can't think of it. What could you? How can I decide what I would have done? I didn't do it. If I would think then different, I would have done it different. You can't say I would have done. You can't live with this. I would have.
So you feel
I
you
would have
always
go to
lived-
Israel before the war, and not stay during the war at home. You couldn't make these things. What could I have done different? No.
So it's...
We made them. Of course, we made mistakes. Only you can't say I would do them any different. You don't know in what circumstances you'll be.
You think you made mistakes?
Of course, we did.
For example?
For example, if I would have stayed with my husband in Russia,
Yeah.
on the other side, maybe he would be alive today. You don't know. Only we thought we want to be not to leave the mother there, so we came back to be with the mother,
Right. With his mother?
with his mother, who I was very close with. Only we couldn't realize then what it will be later, so it was a mistake.
Right.
It could be not. You never know. We could be killed there too. A lot of people were killed in Russia. Only you can't say I would have done it differently, then you didn't know what you were doing anyway.
Before I was asking you to tell us what you think you learned from this experience, if one can even use a question like this, what you learned from the war. But what did you learn about yourself, about people?
I
from
told
the
you,
war?
not much.
What? Okay, I understand.
Really not much. That people, like I told you, show the real face in the hard times, and some people can take it, and other ones fall apart. Only you didn't learn. In those times, what did I? Nothing. Really not much. I think I stayed the same as I was before. I
And
don't
you-
think I
okay,
changed.
and you were saying that character was really formed before.
Yes. When you as a grown person getting in hard times, like I said, you saw the real face of every person. That's all that it really taught you. Is in hard times you know who you are dealing with.
That's very good.
Only it didn't teach, what did this teach? It teaches that you have to work if you want to, and you can do it if you want to.
Yeah.
There is nothing you cannot do. Like I told you, you can wash windows on the second floor from a ladder if you have to and want to know that it has to be done, so you do it.
You must have thought yourself to be very lucky that you had money.
No. I had only money till Auschwitz.
Yeah. And that helped.
Yes, of course, we could buy time, we could buy food.
Uh-huh.
Yes, it did help.
And after Auschwitz, it wasn't money.
No.
Something else.
Nothing.
Something else.
From
helped you.
Auschwitz, from camp, we all came out the same. Naked, literally. Everyone came out naked, nothing. We brought out nothing. What is very interesting that I meet people, I was last summer in Australia, and I met a lot of people that I knew from home, like children that were 5 years younger than I and were children, and I used to help them during the war, now are grandparents. Only what was very interesting, that most of them have the same standard of living they had before. Those people that were children of workers, you can meet today, being still working people. The people that were children of business people or intellectuals have the same standard of living they had at home. They worked so hard at it and they have it. The biggest percentage of people. We all came out the same, 45, only all of them have the same standard of living they saw at home.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting.
Very seldom you find somebody that didn't work himself up to live like his parents used to live. And if they tell you that they come God knows from what background, if you be with them 10 minutes, you know exactly where they come from.
Do you feel there were some signs at the beginning of the war that perhaps if your parents or that you should see or watch for or something before the Germans came in?
No,
that you could have
we
known?
didn't believe in it.
No.
Absolutely not.
That there was nothing you could have known that or foreseen?
We, like I told you, in our town, a big percentage of the people were Germans. Then it was a textile town. And we have had a lot of close friends, Germans. You wouldn't believe it. It's absolutely impossible to believe that they could do the things that they did. I told you that one of our friends came and told us to run away from Lodz, not to be in the part of Germany that's Reich, to go in the occupied zone, like in Warsaw. He knew something. Only we didn't believe that it's a possibility. No, we didn't.
So in spite of the history, in spite of the pogroms, in spite of knowing that you're living in a country where there was a lot of anti-Semitism, nobody really expected
Absolutely
kind of
not.
killings.
No,
and-
not from Germans. Absolutely not. You could expect it of the Poles and of the Ukrainians, only not of the Germans. No.
Okay. Well, what would you like to tell us in concluding remarks? What would you like to sort of transmit for your grandchildren, for generations to come?
I don't think that there is. I am very scared that those things will repeat itself.
You are?
And you can't prepare your grandchildren for it. You can't do anything. Those things come all the time from such different sources in such different ways that you can't prepare anybody for it. The same thing like we weren't prepared. I don't think there is a possibility of preparing yourself. What, can you buy weapons to defend yourself? There aren't any.
Are you talking about the possibility of there being another Jewish Holocaust?
Can be or a Jewish or a non-Jewish, any Holocaust. You can't prepare yourself. Absolutely not. I don't think the world likes us any more now than they did 50 years ago.
So what do you tell your son to tell his children?
Nothing. My son doesn't ask me. He is now so sure that he knows more than I do, that you can't tell him anything. Like all children are. No, you really can't. It's childish. What can you send your child? Can you tell him? Don't let them kill you, defend yourself. I knew that we couldn't defend ourselves. That is only sounds like this from far. We couldn't do anything. We really couldn't.
But you did.
What did I do? Nothing. We didn't defend ourselves. I didn't kill one single German. I saw Germans throwing children over a fence of maybe 8-yard fence, throw it in water, and I couldn't do anything to him, absolutely nothing. So what did I do?
You went after the war and you worked with disturbed children.
So, only I didn't do it at the time to defend those children or to defend myself, then I was defenseless. So you can't tell the people to be prepared to defend themselves. You don't know from where it comes or how it will come. What can you say? Live every day at a time and take out of life as much as you can. That's all you can say.
That's saying
What-
a lot.
What about character? What can you say about that?
Nothing. You work out a child's character till it's 7 years old and you don't change it later as hard as you want to work with the people. They stay like this. You see how people are. Most of them that live through the war are self-centered because they were like this before. This is how they were brought up. This is how they saw their parents to act, and this is how they grew up, and this is how they will be, and this is how their children will be, and you can't help it and you can't change it.
You're a very wise
Like you
woman.
say, if you are a half hour with a child, you don't need a psychiatrist. You know exactly where it comes from. And you can't change it.
Well, Mrs. Olsky,
It
Do
was
you
a
have any
pleasure.
other-
No.
do you have any questions?
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you.
It was a very illuminating talk. We really appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now I'll look where I'm going.